On April 20th, 2019, Jigar Patel, the only son of Narendra Patel who lived in Kalana, Gujarat, suddenly experienced intense stomach pain and vomiting. He told his mother, Madhu Patel, that his hands and feet were becoming cold. Alarmed by their son's sudden health decline, Narendra Patel quickly took him to Apollo Hospital. Although treatment began promptly, Jigar's condition did not improve after 24 hours. Instead, his pain intensified, his health continued to deteriorate, and his body started to stiffen. When the pain became unbearable, Jigar Patel was admitted to a super specialty hospital on April 22, 2019. Treatment resumed, and blood tests were conducted, but all results came back normal. His liver, kidneys, heart, almost every part of his body was examined, yet the doctors couldn't determine the cause of his symptoms. This was not a small facility. It was a renowned super specialty hospital. Jigar's condition kept worsening, and each moment of his life was spent writhing in pain. His hair even started falling out, and over time his hands and feet became increasingly rigid. Several days went by, and while his condition improved a little, he was finally released from the hospital. However, the doctors were unable to find out the true cause of his illness. Then came May 4th, 2019. On this day, the whole family, Narendra Bhai Patel, his wife Madhu Ben Patel, their daughter Kinari Patel, who was a well-educated dentist, and their 14-month-old daughter Mahi visited Narendra's older brother's house. Interestingly, Jigar's wife Bhumi was also a dentist, making both the sister-in-law and the sister in the family dental professionals. Narendra Bhai's older brother's family lived in the same district of Patan, Gujarat. They were all together that day, and the plan was set to pray for Jigar's health. They had decided to visit their ancestral village and offer prayers at the family Dei's temple. They had planned to leave early the next morning on May 5th. However, on the morning of May 5th, something unexpected happened. Jigar, who had been struggling with his health, suddenly had another seizure. His body shook, and he felt very uneasy. He quickly drank some glucose water, hoping it would make him feel better. At that moment, his sister Kinari was by his side. Seeing her brother in pain, Kinari told him she had some medicine that could help him, but Jigar wasn't sure about taking the medicine. He believed that going to the hospital was the better option, so he said no. He kept insisting, "I need to go to the hospital." But as time passed, Jigar's condition got worse. His pain became so unbearable that he finally gave in and decided to take the medicine given by his sister. But things didn't go as planned. Instead of feeling better, Jigar's health took a turn for the worse. Jigar could feel that something was very wrong. In panic, he ran towards his car, thinking he needed to get to the hospital as quickly as possible. His heart raced as he checked his pants pocket for the car keys, but to his surprise, the keys were not there. He frantically looked around, patting his pockets again, but they were gone. Worried, Jigar called out to his family, "Where are the car keys?" "I need the keys," his voice echoed with urgency. Hearing his cry for help, his family rushed towards him. They immediately understood that Jigar's condition had become worse and they needed to act fast. Everyone began searching for the keys, turning the house upside down. Drawers were pulled open, pockets were checked, and every corner of the house was looked over, but no one could find them. The family somehow got Jigar to the hospital, but by the time they reached, he had already fainted. The doctors checked him and said he was no longer alive. Jigar had passed away. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Jigar had died in the arms of his family. They knew his health had been getting worse for months. He wasn't eating well and had been getting weaker every day. Because of his weakness, Jigar probably had a heart attack. The doctors also believed the heart attack caused his death. They suggested doing a post-mortem, but to the family, it seemed like a natural death. Jigar had been suffering for a long time, and they didn't want him to go through more pain with a post-mortem. In many cases, families choose to skip a post-mortem when they believe it isn't needed. For Jigar Patel, his illness had never been properly diagnosed. If an autopsy had been performed, it might have revealed the true cause of his death and perhaps explained his mysterious illness. But no post-mortem was done. The doctors issued a death certificate stating a heart attack as the cause, and the family moved forward with Jigar's final rites. The house was filled with grief. One can only imagine the pain his wife Bhumi and his mother felt, especially Bhumi, who had watched her husband slowly fade away, all while holding their 14-month-old daughter Mahi in her arms. Days passed slowly, and the family tried to move on. But just 25 days after Jigar's death on May 30th, something strange and terrifying happened. Bhumi started to feel a similar kind of unease. She began experiencing seizures just like Jigar, and her vision grew blurry. The family, still reeling from their recent loss, was in shock as Bhumi's health rapidly worsened. Without wasting a moment, Jigar's cousin rushed Bhumi to the hospital, and the rest of the family followed closely behind. Their daughter Mahi, just a baby, was left at home fast asleep in her cradle. At home, Jigar's sister, Kinari, his father Narendra, and his elderly mother anxiously waited, fearing the worst. Not long after Bhumi was rushed to the hospital, Kinari noticed something alarming. Little Mahi was also having seizures. In a panic, she alerted her grandmother, who quickly scooped Mahi into her arms and hurried to the hospital where Bhumi was being treated. Narendra and Kinari followed closely behind, desperate for help. The doctors examined the baby, but soon after, they delivered the heartbreaking news. Mahi had passed away. Within a single month, the family had been shattered by the loss of both a 34-year-old father and a 14-month-old baby. They were left in complete shock and disbelief, unable to comprehend the tragedy that had befallen them. Meanwhile, Bhumi's condition was critical. The doctors fought to stabilize her, and after an intense battle, she finally began to show signs of improvement. Even as they managed to save her, the doctors strongly recommended conducting a postmortem on baby Mahi, but the family said no. Mahi was born early, and from the beginning, her life was unsure. She had always been weak and needed regular medicine. The family believed these reasons were why she passed away and didn't find it strange. Instead of cremating her, they buried her, hoping to give her peace and find some relief from their overwhelming sadness. Bhumi, the daughter-in-law, was still very weak and unwell. In just 1 month, she had lost both her husband and her child, and in many ways, it felt like her entire world had fallen apart. Meanwhile, Narendra Bhai, her father-in-law, couldn't ignore the strange thoughts that kept crossing his mind. He gently suggested to Bhumi that it might be better for her to go back to her parents' home for a while, believing that staying here wouldn't be good for her health or her peace of mind. Bhumi's father was called, and he soon came to take her home. After Bhumi left, Narendra Bhai became more alert, watching everything happening around the house. That's when he noticed something strange. The whole house was filled with sadness. Everyone sat quietly, their eyes full of tears, too tired to speak or move. But Kinari Patel, Jigar's sister, was different. She didn't seem affected at all. While everyone else looked heartbroken, her face was calm, almost too calm, like the tragedy hadn't touched her at all. She was often seen laughing and chatting on the phone with her friends, moving around the house in a carefree manner, eating well, and even going out with friends. It was as if the deaths of her brother and niece didn't bother her at all. On the day Mahi was rushed to the hospital, Kinari showed no signs of worry. In fact, Narendra Bhai remembered seeing her laugh that day, almost as if the situation was a joke to her. For a couple of days, Narendra Bhai thought about everything deeply. Finally, he confronted Kinari and asked, "We've all been watching you. Don't you feel any sadness over your brother and niece's deaths? Could it be that you had something to do with their deaths?" Narendra Bhai wasn't prepared for the response he received. Without any hesitation, Kinari stood up and said, "You're right. I killed both my brother and niece. I was also planning to kill my sister-in-law, but you sent her away to her parents' house." Narendra Bhai felt like the ground beneath him had disappeared. What was he supposed to do now? His only son and granddaughter were dead, and the person responsible for their murder was his own daughter. He was left with a terrible decision. Should he seek justice for his son and granddaughter, or should he protect his daughter from going to prison? Narendra Bhai quickly made up his mind. He would go to the police and file a report. He decided to tell them everything. Kinari had admitted to her father that when she committed the murders, she hadn't fully grasped the seriousness of what she was doing and still didn't feel any guilt. She didn't even try to stop him from going to the police. 5 days after his granddaughter's death, Narendra Bhai went to the B Division police station in Patan district to file a complaint against his daughter, Kinari Patel. He told the police everything, explaining how his daughter had confessed to murdering her brother and niece right in front of him. Afterward, the police arrested Dr. Kinari Patel and questioned her. Kinari confessed to the crimes on camera, explaining in detail how and why she had killed them. She also revealed her motives. Kinari and her brother Jigar had grown up together, and their parents had always given them the best of everything. After Jigar finished his studies, he took over family responsibilities, helping his father with the business and managing the household. Kinari, after completing her education, became a dentist. As children, Kinari and Jigar shared a close bond, but as they grew older, misunderstandings started to form between them. Kinari began to feel that her parents were not treating her fairly. She believed they didn't give her enough attention and that everyone was ignoring her. Slowly, these feelings of misunderstanding and jealousy toward her brother began to grow. She felt like everything in the family revolved around Jigar, and she was being pushed aside. When Jigar married Bhumi, Kinari's feelings of being left out became even stronger. Bhumi was also a dentist, and Kinari saw her as both a personal and professional rival. The tension in the house was already high, and now Kinari felt that even in their careers, Bhumi was overshadowing her. Sometimes she would even argue with Bhumi. As time went on, Kinari's jealousy toward her brother and sister-in-law kept growing. When Jigar and Bhumi had their daughter Mahi, Kinari became jealous of the baby too. Visitors would only ask about the baby and her parents, leaving Kinari feeling even more ignored and unimportant. Kinari's father owned properties worth millions, and her heart was filled with resentment. Soon, greed took over her thoughts. She convinced herself that if her brother and sister-in-law were no longer around, all her problems would disappear. She would become the only heir to her father's wealth and finally receive the attention she longed for. But the truth was that there was no unfair treatment. Kinari was simply trapped in her own misunderstanding, believing everyone was ignoring her. Now she faced a big question. How could she get rid of her brother and sister-in-law without being caught? As a doctor, she had some knowledge about the chemicals dentists often use, so she started researching different chemical compounds, poisonous plants, and slow-acting poisons that could gradually harm the body and damage internal organs. She also looked into quick-acting poisons. At first, her plan was to use a slow poison so it would seem like they had been ill for a while, making their deaths look natural. She knew that a sudden death might raise too many questions. After doing a lot of research, Kinari found a slow poison made from the seeds of a plant named datura, also known as thorn apples. This plant was easy to find in rural areas where trees and plants grew freely. Kinari knew an auto driver who helped her get the seeds. The driver had no idea the seeds were poisonous. He probably thought she wanted them for planting. Kinari decided not to poison her brother and sister-in-law at the same time, knowing that if they both died together, it would raise suspicion. So she started by slowly poisoning her brother first. Every time Jigar came home from work, Kinari made sure she was home, finishing her own chores ahead of time. Being family, she was very familiar with his daily routine, when he left and when he returned. Whenever he asked for water, Kinari would offer him a glass she had already boiled with the poisonous seeds and let it cool down after filtering it. Each time Jigar asked for water, Kinari would give him the poisoned glass. Gradually, the slow-acting poison began to take effect. Jigar's health started to decline, his eyesight got worse, his digestion weakened, and he became physically frail. Her brother went to the doctor, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. In March 2019, Kinari decided to take things further and buy potassium cyanide. Although it's not easy to find, jewelers often have it because they use it for polishing or plating gold. As a doctor, Kinari knew exactly where to get it. She approached a jeweler, made friends with him, and gained his trust. One day she lied to him, saying she needed potassium cyanide for a patient who wanted gold teeth. The jeweler, trusting her, gave her a small amount, just enough for gold plating. However, Kinari thought that amount was too little, but she knew she couldn't ask for more without raising suspicion, so she used the same friendship trick with another jeweler and managed to get more cyanide from him too. Eventually, she collected a sufficient amount. She then had to test how potent the poison was by determining if it could kill a person within a short time. Kinari put a tiny amount of potassium cyanide beside a spider and an ant. The moment they touched it, both the spider and the ant fell dead in an instant. Seeing that made Kinari happy. She asked her doctor friend to get her empty capsules for her next. She filled the capsules using potassium cyanide, then packed them very carefully. She used a carving tool. With the cyanide-filled capsules now ready, Kinari was all prepared to go ahead with the deadly plan. At the same time, she gave her brother glucose-mixed water from the poisonous plant seeds. She saw him get ill each day without one single care in her heart. Yet Kinari was getting restive at the time the slow poison was taking to work. It had already been 7 to 8 months, and she wanted to do this quickly. On May 4th, when the Patel family went to their uncle's house and planned to go to their family temple, Kinari took the capsules with herself. The next morning, i.e., May 5th, when Jigar drank his glucose water usually, his condition worsened up. Kinari claimed that she had medicine which could give him relief very soon. Although her brother refused, she pushed the cyanide-filled capsule down his throat and made him drink the poisoned glucose water. Only after swallowing the capsule, Jigar's condition started to deteriorate at an alarming rate. He tried to rush to his car to reach the hospital, but Kinari had secretly taken the car keys earlier so he would be late. Without the keys, he could not even make his way to the hospital on time and died en route. A few days later, Kinari threw the car keys away in Ahmedabad so that no one could identify her. Since no proof was found against her from the car keys, all considered Jigar's death as a heart attack as his health was not too good. After Jigar's death, Kinari began to focus on her sister-in-law Bhumi. She continued feeding Bhumi the same slow poisoned glucose water in 4 or 5 doses. Bhumi too began deteriorating. It was May 30th when Bhumi was hospitalized. Their 14-month-old daughter Mahi was peacefully sleeping in her cradle back home. Kinari now thought, since Jigar was no more and Bhumi also was becoming weaker, Mahi alone would be the heir of the entire property of her family. This placed Mahi at the risk of her plans. Kinari also decided to give Mahi a cyanide capsule. She put the cyanide capsule in the mouth of the sleeping baby. As soon as the cyanide capsule dissolved and entered into the body, Mahi's condition also started to deteriorate. Mahi started having fits, and it was Kinari who told everyone that the baby is getting convulsions. The family took Mahi straight to the hospital immediately. Unfortunately, that little girl died. Because of this incident, police unraveled the whole story. They dug up Mahi's buried body to be sent for autopsy and further investigation. When the police searched the house of Kinari, it found 5 red capsules and 2 yellow capsules in a plastic container, besides approximately 50 grams of poisonous plant seeds from 2 other places inside the house. For example, it had an internet search on a laptop about various types of poisons. The case was, later on, filed by the police in the Patan Sessions Court. There was much discussion supported by evidence and witnesses appearing in court to testify. The court relied on its decision on a video recording where the accused admitted that she had killed her brother and niece. In this video, she explained how and why she committed those murders. Along with this, the court also relied on forensic and medical reports. With this evidence, the court concluded that she was found guilty of murder under Section 302 of IPC without any doubt. She was sentenced to life in prison for the murders of her brother and niece on April 4, 2022, by the court after 3 years.